Welcome to the Captain's Log with me, Captain Christina Zamora from blogtrack.net. The Captain's Log is a podcast where I document my day and style it like a Star Trek episode. If you enjoy the podcast, check out blogtrack.net where I have pictures, stories, and more. Hope you like this subspace transmission. As I stare at my computer, I have a number of things on my mind. Part of me wants to talk about my week in chronological order. Another part of me wishes to talk about things in the order of importance. A third part of me just wants to write an unstructured entry. I suppose that, I'll start out by talking about my presentation to the Daystrom Institute, the podcast that I live stream with in collaboration with women at work. I was quite nervous as I began my presentation. I'm a bit camera shy, just doing recorded videos. Being live definitely had me anxious. Still, I was honored to just be able to share a bit of my story and analysis. I was so encouraged to see all the positive feedback. Personally, I was slightly upset at myself because I could have made the presentation a lot cleaner with slides had I not rewritten it too close to the deadline. I started to become redundant in the points I was saying during the latter half of the presentation, though they resonated with some nonetheless. I have felt so alone and invisible for so long that just having others hear me and enjoy my content felt like a win. I liken it to how it was for Janeway and the crew when the doctor returns from the Alpha Quadrant in the episode Message in a Bottle and tells Janeway, I told them everything that happened to this crew, and they asked me to relay a message that you no longer are alone. And Janeway says, 60,000 light years seems a lot closer today. I still feel trapped in the Delta Quadrant myself, but I feel hardened by the outpouring of support. I've grown weary venturing out here alone. Taking on an entire quadrant with one ship could tax the most resilient captain. I hope we are able to once again reinitiate contact with the Federation in the future. I've learned a lot from my contact out here with the various civilizations that inhabit this quadrant, and I hope to share that intel with Starfleet. Until then, I have other missions to plan. My bridge crew, Tino, Noah, and Bella, have taken a shuttlecraft to chart the Bevel star cluster summer camp. Their mission is scheduled to last 6 days. During the interim, my ship will be manned by a skeleton crew. I'll be here by myself at home. As I flew through interstellar space on the freeway, I came upon the area where my former officer, my late wife Michelle, went missing. Uh, I'm not sure why, but I felt compelled to explore the area. Perhaps because she's been on my mind a lot lately. It's always hard flying by the Bowman expanse. I always wonder what it was going through her mind that fateful night she went missing. Given that I had the time, I beamed down to the surface. Though the picture, which you can't see, but if you're listening to this, looks unremarkable. This is where Michelle parked her car on the last night of her life. Her body was later found over a mile away. She came. Why she came out here is not known. What I was told is that was last seen at midnight in Safeway and was out here at 3 a.m. What happened between midnight and 2:30 a.m.? It's a 30-minute flight from Earth, my place, to the Bowman expanse. I was working the overnight shift at the homeless shelter that night. We even had the cops come out a bit past 2 a.m. because we had to remove a volatile client. That night was grueling. After the cops left, the rest of the residents were on edge because of the disturbance and needed some reassurance. Plus, I had to write a long report on what happened and had to brief the next shift on everything once they came in. I had looked forward to coming home only later to find the kids at home alone and Michelle nowhere to be found. I immediately called the guy she temporarily moved in with for a time, Apocalypse Daniel. He hadn't heard from her. I called a few hospitals and nothing. I received a call later about the car being found and immediately set course. After showing up on site, I ended up having to meet with the police. They were able to verify my whereabouts. They didn't tell me too much more at the time. The next day, frustrated by the lack of updates, I had returned to try and figure out where in that area she could be. I was intercepted and told to leave it up to them to find her. It took days, but she was found uh, deceased. That was in 2017. The hardest part of the ordeal was trying to help the kids cope. They lost their grandma earlier in the year and our house a bit after that. They hated and still hate the apartment, and losing the birth mom in such a gruesome way, it took everything I had to try to get them through it. It was so public too. Cameras at school. Everyone knew. And some of the kids were jerks and would bring up like, "Oh, don't have a mom now, she's dead." And so for me, job number one was helping them cope, which I believe I helped them do so successfully, though at a cost to my own mental health. Just, I never showed them the toll it took on me. I hid it well. I lost the only important adults in my life that year. Here in the present, I almost forget just how poorly off I was after that. I do believe it's an accurate statement to say that I died that day too. 2018 is so much of a blur. I genuinely don't know what happened other than losing my job. It was so bad that after I won a battle for being wrongfully terminated, that I eventually didn't continue to file the appropriate paperwork to keep the benefits coming in. I literally lost thousands of dollars because of depression. And yet, from then to now, I've made a lot of progress, I think. So, with the clear mind, I set out to try and retrace her steps. It's so super rugged that I always have a hard time believing she got to where she did on foot. And if she didn't get there on foot, then someone must have put her there. And thus, I set out to see the actual logistics. To be continued. Uh, Thank you for joining me here on blogtrek.net and the Captain's Log. I hope you have a good day. Thank you for tuning in.